All right, everybody, welcome back to the deep dive. You ready to explore something kind of crazy today?
Always. I'm all ears. What are we diving into?
Well, we're looking at the connection between hostage negotiators and decision making. It sounds kind of wild, but trust me, it's fascinating.
Really? I never would have thought of those two things together. Where did you come across this?
So I found this article from the Cub think tank website. It's called The Hidden Psychology of Decision Making: What Executives Can Learn from Hostage Negotiators.
Okay. I'm intrigued already. What's the main takeaway?
Well, it basically says there's this hidden layer in our decision making that we often ignore.
A hidden layer? Like what?
So you know how we think we make decisions based on logic and facts, right?
Yeah, isn't that how it's supposed to work?
Well, the article argues that there's this whole other thing going on in the background. It's what psychologist Dr. Ron Friedman calls the relationship channel.
The relationship channel. That sounds interesting. What's
What?
that all about?
It's basically our subconscious constantly sizing up the people involved. Like, are they on our side? Do they respect us? Can we trust them?
Oh, I see. So even when we think we're being objective, our emotions are playing a role.
Exactly. And the article says that this relationship channel can have a huge impact on the decisions we make.
Okay. I can kind of see that. How does it actually play out, though?
So let's say you're in a really intense negotiation. The task channel is focused on the deal itself, the numbers, the deadlines,
Right, the practical stuff.
Yeah. But at the same time, the relationship channel is picking up on all these subtle cues, like body language, tone of voice, power dynamics.
Ah, so if you're feeling threatened or disrespected, that's going to affect how you interpret the information.
Totally. And that's when things can get messy. The article points out that even in professional settings, our egos can totally hijack the decision-making process.
Ugh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen so many times. People get defensive, they dig in their heels, and suddenly it's not about finding the best solution anymore. It's about winning or saving face.
Right? It becomes a huge ego trip. And the article says that if we want to make good decisions, we need to figure out how to deal with this relationship channel.
Okay, but how do you actually do that? It seems kind of abstract.
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The article introduces this framework called PEARLS. It was developed by Dr. Anthony Sushman.
Curls. Okay, I'm listening. What's that all about?
It stands for 6 different types of statements that can help build rapport and kind of disarm those emotional defenses. It's all about creating a space where people feel safe and respected so they can make better choices.
That sounds promising. So walk me through these pearls. What do they stand for?
So the P stands for partnership. It's about emphasizing that you're in this together from the get-go.
So instead of being all my way or the highway,
Uh,
you're setting a tone of collaboration.
Exactly. And the article gives this example of a hostage negotiator. Imagine they're talking to someone who's holding people hostage.
I can't even imagine that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
How would they use partnership in that situation?
Well, they might say something like, I understand you're feeling trapped and scared right now.
Really?
Yeah.
They'd actually say that to a criminal. Doesn't seem very tough.
Well, it's not about agreeing with their actions. It's
Yeah.
about acknowledging the emotions behind them. And that's where the E comes in, empathy.
Oh, I see. So you're showing them that you understand where they're coming from, even if you don't agree with what they're doing.
Exactly. And the article says this can be super powerful in any situation. Let's say you're pitching a new project at work and you can tell there's some resistance.
Oh, I've been there. It's so frustrating when people aren't immediately on board.
Instead of getting defensive, you could use empathy and say something like, I understand this is a big change and you probably have some concerns.
Yeah, that's a much better approach than just steamrolling ahead. It shows you respect their perspective. So we've got partnership and empathy. What's next?
Okay, the A is for acknowledgement. It's about recognizing the other person's efforts and contributions.
So like, I can tell you put a lot of work into this and I appreciate your dedication.
Right. It's not just about agreeing with them. It's about valuing their input. And then we have R for respect.
Like, I'm really impressed with your expertise in this area.
Exactly. You're basically laying the foundation for a more positive and productive interaction.
Okay, so partnership, empathy, acknowledgement, respect. What's next?
All right. The L is for legitimation. This one's about validating the other person's feelings, even if you don't necessarily share them.
So you might say something like, it's understandable that you'd feel frustrated in this situation.
Precisely. You're acknowledging that their feelings are valid, which can really help to de-escalate things.
I like it. It's like you're giving them permission to feel what they're feeling without judgment. Okay, so we've got all those. What's the final pearl?
The S is for support. This is where you show your commitment to helping the other person succeed.
So something like, I'm here to support you in finding a solution that works for everyone.
Exactly. You're basically signaling that you're on their side.
Wow, so this Pearls framework is like a whole new way of approaching communication. It's incredible to think that it's used in hostage negotiations.
And the article says it can be just as effective in everyday situations, like dealing with difficult coworkers or even navigating family conflicts.
It makes you realize that those high-stakes situations share some surprising similarities with the challenges we face in our own lives.
Totally. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. It's not just about hostage negotiators or business leaders. It's about how we connect with each other as human beings.
So true. And speaking of human connection, the article goes on to highlight some fascinating research on how the most successful hostage negotiators actually operate in the field.
Okay, now I'm really curious. Tell me more.
You might be surprised to hear this, but it turns out the best negotiators aren't the ones who try to dominate the conversation or overpower the hostage taker.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not what you see in the movies.
Nope. It's actually the opposite. They're the ones who focus on listening, building rapport, and using techniques like Pearls to create an environment where the other person feels safe enough to make better choices.
So it's all about mastering the relationship channel.
Exactly. And the article highlights the work of clinical psychologist Lori Charles, who studied hostage negotiators in these high-pressure situations.
What did she find?
Well, she observed that negotiators who interrupted or contradicted the hostage taker often made things worse.
It's like by trying to control the situation, they were actually escalating it.
Exactly. But the negotiators who really listened, who mirrored the hostage taker's language and used Pearls to validate their feelings, they were the ones who were able to create a calmer atmosphere and often led to more peaceful resolutions.
Wow, that's incredible. So you're saying that even in these life or death situations, the key to success is building a strong relationship.
Absolutely. And the article argues that this same principle applies to the business world, even though the stakes might not be quite as high.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here. But how exactly does this translate to, like, a boardroom or a tough negotiation in a business setting?
Think about it. Executives often face situations where the pressure is intense, emotions are running high, and the fear of making the wrong decision can be paralyzing. It might not be a literal hostage situation, but the dynamics can be surprisingly similar.
You're right. There's all that ego stuff, the power plays, the fear of losing face.
And just like with hostage negotiations, trying to dominate or overpower, the other side can backfire.
So are you saying we should be using Pearls in our everyday work lives? I mean, it sounds great in theory, but is it actually practical?
Absolutely. The article lays out 3 actionable strategies that can help you put these insights to work and gain a real edge.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. Tell me more about these strategies.
Yeah.
All right, lay it on me. What are these 3 strategies?
So the first one is all about emotional intelligence training. Make it a priority for your team.
Yeah, that makes sense. Give people the tools to understand and manage all those emotional dynamics.
Exactly. It's about developing self-awareness, learning to recognize emotions in others, and figuring out how to handle those emotions effectively.
But wouldn't that be super time-consuming and expensive? Can companies really afford that?
Well, the article actually cites research showing that companies with higher emotional intelligence tend to perform better.
Really? So it's not just about creating a nice work environment, it actually makes good business sense.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence impacts everything from communication and collaboration to decision-making and conflict resolution.
Wow, okay, I'm starting to see the value here.
Ah.
So emotional intelligence training is a smart investment, not just a feel-good perk.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second strategy, embedding the Pearls technique into your company culture.
Okay, now that's interesting. How would that work in practice?
It's about making those relationship-building statements a natural part of how people communicate, not just something you pull out in a crisis.
So it's not just a toolkit. It's baked into the DNA of the organization.
Exactly. Think about it. What if using Pearls became second nature in meetings, emails, even casual conversations?
It'd be like creating a culture of respect and empathy from the ground up.
And the article suggests that this can lead to more open communication, more creative problem solving, and stronger relationships across the board.
It's like you're setting the stage for success by fostering a more positive and collaborative environment.
Now, the third strategy really zooms in on the role of leadership.
Yeah.
The article emphasizes that leaders need to model emotionally intelligent behavior.
Right. Actions speak louder than words.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yeah.
If leaders are dismissive, disrespectful, or constantly reacting emotionally, it sets a negative tone for the whole organization.
But if they're demonstrating empathy, actively listening, and using pearls to build rapport.
Then it creates a ripple effect.
Yeah.
People see that it's not just okay to be emotionally intelligent, it's actually valued and rewarded.
So takeaway number 3. Leaders need to embody the change they want to see.
Exactly. And the article concludes with this powerful idea. Addressing the emotional layer of decision-making isn't just a soft skill, it's a strategic advantage.
I love that. It's like we're not just talking about being touchy-feely here, we're talking about a real competitive edge.
It can lead to decisions that are more rational, more inclusive, and ultimately more sustainable.
Because you've factored in the human element, not just the bottom line.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's about recognizing that emotions are always present, even in the most professional settings. And by understanding and managing that relationship channel, you're creating a more effective and fulfilling workplace for everyone.
I have to say I'm really impressed by how this deep dive has connected these seemingly disparate worlds of hostage negotiation and corporate leadership.
It really highlights how these psychological principles are at play in all areas of life. And that's what makes this so fascinating. It's not just about business, it's about how we interact with each other as human beings.
You're so right. In fact, it makes me wonder if we could apply these same principles to our personal lives as well.
Absolutely. Think about all those times when disagreements with friends or family spiral out of control because emotions are running high.
Don't even get me started. I've had my fair share of those blow-ups.
But imagine if we use pearls in those situations. What if instead of getting defensive or trying to win the argument, we focused on building rapport and understanding the other person's perspective?
Wow, that's a game changer. I never thought about using these techniques outside of a professional context.
It might not always be easy, but the article really highlights the power of these skills to transform our communication and relationships both at work and at home.
This is mind-blowing. It's like we've been given this secret weapon, but we've only been using it in the boardroom.
Exactly. And it leads to a final thought-provoking question for you and our listeners to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What's the question? Come on, don't leave me hanging. What's the big question?
All right, so here's what I want you to think about. How can you use pearls, or that idea of the relationship channel, to improve your own communication and decisions? And I'm not just talking about big meetings. I mean, in your daily life, too.
Oh, that really puts things into perspective. We've been talking about hostage negotiators and CEOs, but this brings it home for everyone.
It's a challenge to take these big ideas and actually use them, in those little moments every day, like when you disagree with a coworker or have a tough conversation with someone you love.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about how I could use empathy and legitimation next time I feel myself getting defensive in an argument. It's like a whole new way of dealing with conflict.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about being a pushover or letting people walk all over you. It's about creating space to really understand each other. Even if you don't see eye to eye, you can still acknowledge the other person's feelings and work towards a solution.
My mind is blown. It's like we've discovered this secret code for better communication.
And the best part is, anyone can use it. It doesn't matter what your job is or how much experience you have. It's about tapping into that basic human need to be heard and respected.
I love how this deep dive took us from hostage situations to the business world and now to our own personal lives. It just shows how important these psychological principles are in everything we do.
It's a good reminder that we're all just trying to figure things out and make the best choices we can. Sometimes the best way to do that is to remember the human side of things.
Couldn't said it better myself. I think that about wraps up our deep dive for today.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From the psychology behind decisions to the power of pearls and what we can learn from those incredible hostage negotiators.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to put all of this into practice. What about you?
Me too. I hope everyone listening feels the same way. Remember, pearls is a tool we can all use. It has the potential to make our interactions so much more positive and productive.
Such a powerful message. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic.
Until then, keep those pearls close. And don't forget about the relationship channel. You might be surprised by the positive changes it brings to your life.